Are you looking for a secret parenting skill, one that can unlock the deep wells within your children's heart? It's almost like a superpower. Well, it's this one. It's learning to ask a good question. Albert Einstein famously said, question everything. Now, parents often want to tell their kids things, but this tip that I'm going to teach you today about learning to ask a question will draw out the deep waters within your children's hearts. And that comes through learning to ask them the most appropriate questions at the right time and then teaching your children to do the same. Alvin Toffler said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn and unlearn and relearn. So question asking is really all about that. Because when you ask better questions, it will foster a deeper connection with your children and with those that you're developing a relationship. It's much better to ask a question than just telling and just talking, because it boosts the emotional intelligence levels in both you and the person that you're asking the question of. It also increases wisdom. It gives you favor, especially when you ask questions to people that they want to actually answer those kind of questions. It unlocks things in their hearts and it causes a lot of relational favor to take place. Think about your children. Yes, they're in your home, but building a relationship with them takes time. So question asking really builds those foundation blocks and those bricks in your relationship. It also shows respect because you're showing interest in the other person. And teaching your children the skill of asking a good question will do the same for them. Now, question asking is very different from telling, because when you tell people something, they don't feel empowered. It doesn't encourage self-discovery and stunts creativity. Whereas asking invitational questions aids clarity, people feel valued, it opens up a world. Argentine said, he who speaks sows and he who listens reaps. It's very much that kind of thought where you ask a question and then you learn to listen. So how do you know when someone isn't listening to you? Well, they're distracted, or they jump to conclusions, or they ask the wrong questions. And when they don't listen, they make you feel unimportant. So this skill of asking good questions is actually about listening. They say that we should spend about 80% listening and 20% question asking. To be precise, actually, Jesus asked 307 questions. He is asked 183, and he only answered 3 directly. If we model our life after Jesus, we'll see that he used question asking actually as his primary method of teaching. So how much more should we ask good questions of our children and of those that are around us? So when we talk about question asking, it goes hand in hand with listening. So we listen with our mind, we engage our mind, we listen with our body, we listen with our words, we listen with our intuition. We put our phones aside, we put some of the distractions aside, and we orientate ourselves towards the person that we focused on. Change begins the moment you ask a question. And so people will then start to uncover things about themselves. Well, you might think, well, Mandy, you're carrying on about this question asking, how do I ask a question? Or what are the types of questions I can ask? Well, good question. But questions can be constructed in different ways. You can ask an open or closed question. So an open question would leave a response. So instead of saying a closed question would be, are you going to town? Yes or no. Open question would be, when are you going to town and what are you going to do there? A directive question moves people in a direction and it gives clarity. You could ask your children, what is your plan to get into the hockey team? The third type of question is clarifying questions. So you could say to your children, if you're speaking to them about things, what do you think are some of the challenges you're facing with learning for this test? Or what are you struggling with in studying? You get emotive questions. So how did whatever happened make you feel? What emotions did you experience? So you're getting your children to uncover their emotions. You could also get information type questions. So you want to gather more info. So what action did you take? And after that incident happened, what did you do then? Who, what, where kind of questions. Limit your why questions, moms and dads, because that's often so past focused. So use those very sparingly. And then I wouldn't really do this much with our kids, but maybe as they get older, is ask for permission. Say, may I ask you a question about this? Or have I understood this correctly? So you could use that a lot with adults, but it's just so many different types of questions. You get neutral questions. So these are non-judgmental types of questions. So an example of that would be, what options do you see in working with this team? Another question we often speak to our kids or ask them is challenging questions. So what are the reasons that made you arrive to this conclusion? You're making them think about things. Action questions also kickstart things. So what can you start doing, or what could you stop doing, or what are the steps that you can take to achieve this? These questions just are a myriad of them. You'll get a handout in your printout, so you'll be able to print it out and think about it. But in question asking, also practice the art of the pause and keep your humor. So ask a question and pause, and then wait for responses. Don't just jump in again, and ask your children only one question at a time. Don't ask too many questions because they will get confused. But I want to encourage you, take time to think about the questions you can ask your kids. It builds family connections, it develops the relationships, and it's a great skill that you can use in your home. You can use it in the marketplace for certain, and you can use it in every relationship that you have. So become an excellent question asker.